Welcome back, my friends. I'm JohnnyB from JohnnyB.com. Do you know how to handle the appraisal so that you have a great outcome without breaking the law? Okay, so once your offer is accepted, your lender is going to ask you to do a couple of things. You're going to make your earnest money deposit at the bank. We're going to discuss that. You're also going to order your appraisal. The lender will make the order for you. He'll order it through his department, but he cannot call the appraisal company himself. They call the appraisal company and they pick somebody from their roster and that person comes out. Your lender is not allowed to talk to him. You're not supposed to talk to him either. I can talk to him and so can the listing agent. My preference is for them to contact me. By default, they contact the listing agent because all they want is access. The reason I want to meet them there personally is I want to help you to have the home appraised if possible, but staying within the rules of conduct. So the way I do it, first of all, is I send an email to both the lender and the listing agent, and I ask them both to please make me the point of contact. And I tell the listing agent if they call you, please have them call me. I prefer that the listing agent remove the lockbox and put a combo box up because some of the appraisers have a lockbox key and they'll just let themselves in if it's vacant. If I tell them very specifically, do not go direct, that helps. They should follow those guidelines because they don't want to create an embarrassing situation. I request from the listing agent a list of the improvements that have been made on the property. This can sometimes be quite a list. And it can cause the appraiser to look at things differently. There can also be reasons that you have picked this home over the other homes, and I want to point those reasons out. The way I do it is I go meet the appraiser. I'm warm, friendly, and fuzzy. I give them my business card. I ask for their business card. We're then in contact with each other. I tell them that there's things about the house that affect the value. Do you want to know what they are? 100% of the appraisers have always said yes to this. It would be stupid of them to turn away data, and that's all I'm offering them. I cannot say, hey, what are you going to appraise this for? Or, hey, I need this amount to appraise to make this deal work. I can't say those things. That's against the rules. I can give them reasons that this home might be more valuable than it appears at first glance just looking at comps. For example, the roof could be new. There could be a solar system. There could have been an upgraded kitchen, and the fact that somebody spent a lot of money in that kitchen can increase the perceived value. So this allows the appraiser to look at it with a different set of eyes, and there is some adjustment that he can make. I can't ask him to make it, but if I give him the data, it's going to usually happen. Okay, in this process, it's helpful to understand the role of each party. The loan officer, he's on your side. She is your person that's going to do everything possible, legally, ethically, and morally, to package together your data, to present it to the bank, to get your loan through. That's their job. They're on your side. You might say the underwriter is on the side of the bank. They have to look at everything and make sure every box is checked, every piece of data that they need is there in the file. It is critically important to the underwriter that there be no missing pieces. And it's very common for buyers to say, hey, this is just common sense. You don't need this because you've got this and this and this, and surely that should be enough. If you can't figure out that I can make the payments based on what I gave you, and they start getting an attitude. Please understand, the underwriter has a tremendous burden. They have to package the loan, not just so that it makes sense, not so it's common sense, it's so that every box is checked so that when they go to sell the loan on the secondary market, it's sellable. If it's not sellable, they could get in trouble. So please respond quickly to any request they have for documents. Understand everybody's working together to make this happen for you. Nobody's just trying to make your life miserable. We want you to get the outcome. We want the loan officer to succeed with the underwriter. We want the underwriter to succeed in getting everything they need up front as quick as possible in the interim so that we can then get a fast decision. And we want the underwriter to succeed in their job so that this whole thing continues. Why do we care if the appraisal comes in? Okay, it has to do with the amount of out-of-pocket money. Now, when you go to talk to your lender, you can ask them yourself, what is the percentage of the time that something doesn't appraise? It's going to depend on the market. If the market's moving up rapidly, every single comparable that they use is going to be backwards in time, downhill at a lower price. And that's going to cause them to look at these numbers, and there's going to be literally no comp at the new higher price. That's what happens in a positive slope. So most of the homes appraise anyway. You can ask, I've been told it's somewhere between 1/4 to 2% of the homes don't appraise. When you ask that, you can ask them where those homes were. And quite often it's not in the neighborhoods where we're buying. What if it doesn't appraise? What's the big deal? Well, the bank is making you a loan based on the appraised value, not on the offer price. To make the math easy, I'm going to use $1 million purchase price as the example. So if you've made an offer for $1 million, the bank is going to send out an appraiser. They're going to want to see that it's worth $1 million in the opinion of the appraiser. Let's talk about opinions of value right now. So an appraiser is going to go out, they're going to have the contract with them, and 98% plus of the time, bingo, it's going to come out exactly at the same value as the contract. To the dollar. It's crazy. It's implausible. But that's the way it works. What their job is not to identify their true opinion of value. They need to identify if there's enough equity there to support that loan. And if there is, they often don't stick their neck out any further. This frustrated me as a new agent because I'd really work hard to get a great deal for my client, and I'm thinking it's like report card time. I'm going to get my good grade back from the appraiser and show that I got them this fantastic value, and then it comes back to the dollar. And so if they're offering you a 20% down loan and you've got a $1 million property and it comes in at $950,000 appraised value, there's a $50K delta. That $50K delta has to be paid for in cash. It doesn't mean that you're paying a higher price for the home. And if you had 2 or 3 other appraisers, it would probably come out with a different number. I would bet dollars to donuts on it if it's under. If it's full value, it's likely to come in exactly the same over and over again. But if it's under, here's what happens. You got to come in with $50K, you got the $200K down payment, maybe $10K closing costs. So now your $210K turn into $260K, and you still have to have reserves on the side to handle the requirements of the loan. So we have to plan ahead for this because the probability of this happening is very small, but it's not zero. And so I've never had a client get in a pickle or lose money because of the appraisal. It's because we discuss it up front, we plan ahead, and we talk about how to solve different possible problems. One way to solve it is to have reserves on hand for the appraisal. And frankly, let's say you were the seller and you got a $1 million offer and the guy brings you an offer with 20% down and he has $210K cash and there's no contingencies. Your thought is going to be, what happens if it doesn't appraise? I don't see a dime here to cover that. I don't see any reserves here. So they're not going to accept your offer unless they don't do the math, and that's probably not going to happen. So where can this come from? The reserves and the fallback position can come from retirement funds that you don't plan on touching. However, you must be willing, able, and determined to do it if it is required given the circumstances of the appraisal. It could come from stocks that you would rather not sell but could and would if you had to. It can come from a gift letter. But again, if a relative gives you a gift letter, they have to be willing and determined to bring the money in when necessary, if necessary. Do not get a gift letter from somebody who's not willing to bring in the money and gamble on the 98%, because what you're going to do is you're going to end up in a pickle and you could put your 3% earnest money deposit at risk. So in this case, we're talking about a $1 million purchase. That's $30,000 at 3%. And almost all the contracts today in this area are 3% initial deposit. I have a track record of $0 lost from initial deposits. So we'll work together to make sure that you have your bases covered before we make the offer. One thing about gift letters is they have to come from a relative. They cannot come from your best friend. It can be auntie, uncle, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, sister, brother. Talk with your lender to see what the sphere is and make sure you stay within the perimeter of that. So if the market slows down, the appraisal process is going to be completely different. The negotiations are different. You're going to have the ability to have an appraisal contingency. What that means is the appraisal comes in, it comes in at value or it doesn't. If it doesn't, then a couple of things that can happen. You can ask the seller to negotiate and bring the price down. It's typically got to be met somewhere in the middle, but it could be that you accept it as is, you pay the delta, and you get the home. You could negotiate, and if the market's weak enough and they've waited long enough for a buyer and they're willing, and it makes sense to them, they might bring the price down to match the appraisal. More likely, it meets somewhere in the middle. And it's going to depend on the strength and pace and common practice at that time. Next time, do you know how to preempt problems that could derail your transaction and completely crash it to the ground before anything happens? Till next time, I'm Johnny B.
Extraordinarily pleased to have the next presenter.
The man I'm going to bring up to you now is a force of nature in a different way. He's going to be more like drinking out of a fire hose again.
He's known as the $9.4 billion man.
I probably wouldn't be here without my mentor.
He's been responsible now for working with 10,000 different businesses in 400 different industries.
And every time I listen to his material, I get new ideas on marketing.
With great pleasure, I want to introduce Mr. Jay Abraham.
Jay Abraham, give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen.
Give Jay Abraham a big hand right here, okay? Come on. This man's a genius.
I am an ethical pusher of a drug called strategic critical thinking because most people are terribly addicted to bad marketing,
Fresh roll on.
bad strategy.
You know you shouldn't do that, Jimmy.
Do what? Non-critical thinking.
What's your chemistry training got to do with making cash registers? I don't know yet.
My whole job is to burst your reality wide open.
Can't stop, won't stop.
We call him the $9 billion man because he's consulted thousands of companies.
The new Icy Hot backpatch.
We took Icy Hot from 20,000 to 13 million in just over a year.
He's been around and doing marketing and branding probably before you were born.
We accidentally went retail. In other words, we forced retail distribution.
I would say he has the biggest vocabulary that you will ever imagine.
What's the word I want to use?
A cadre of introspective, flagrant, preeminent elements, distinctions, concepts that no one has ever shared with them.
You'll learn by listening to Jay that there's no relationship between being good and getting paid.
What I think many entrepreneurs fail to do is realize that value is very relative.
There is a great relationship between being a good marketer and getting paid.
What I find most hilarious when you talk to most companies that have salespeople, I'll say, okay, do you train your people? They'll say, sure. And I'll say, no. I'm not saying do you show them the products, the catalogs, do you teach them consultative selling? Do you teach them problem solving?
He looks at your business and kind of turns his head sideways and says, what if you did this? And you're like, how did I never think of that?
Jay has doubled my income.
Imagine if you're getting 20, 30, 60% doing nothing strategic.
He has doubled my net worth.
What would happen if you had 1 or 2 or 3 systematic strategies?
He has tripled probably the value of my company. When you can change your business 10, 15, 20, 30, 40% just by another human giving you advice, you need to take that advice.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop.